Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Squid Game Season 2, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up where the last episode left off, we are at the beginning of this game, and once again, you have to divide up into different groups the moment they call out the number. And so we started off with 255, then the first round, I think it was like 20 people died because I think it dropped to 225. And then after that, it was like 168, I believe. And then it was like 126 or 125 or something like that. So, but either way, it's just like the first grouping was like 5 or 6, because I think there was at one point Inho was like, no, you guys go ahead, I'll be the one to kind of bow out, just so that you guys make sure that you have like a, the right amount of numbers. And it's like, right, the moment you get in the room, the door locks, and anyone left out of the room by the time the timer's up gets blasted, obviously. And so the numbers fluctuate. It's like 5, 6, 4, the last number for the final round, because it ended up being 5 rounds. Because that was my question last episode. I was like, considering the nature of this game, I was like, it has to be multiple rounds so you can dwindle the numbers more and more and more and more, right? So I figured it was going to be a multi-round game. But, obviously most of our characters that we've come to follow and get to know have all survived. Obviously some of those characters we've come to know unfortunately survived, like a Thanos and stuff like that. But yeah, like, because of like the craziness of everything, like the dire situations, like what was his name? Was it is that his name, or 246? The dad. He ended up helping out Yomi and Hyungju when they kind of like were looking for one more person. We saw that at one point Youngsik got dragged away and his mom was left alone. Luckily, Inho and Gi-hoon grabbed her up at that moment. So, and Inho had this conversation like, whoa, your son abandoned you? Isn't that kind of why? Wait, he didn't come back for you? But she's like, my son's a good boy. He would never hurt anybody. Like, he cares about people. Like, he would rather be bullied than ever bully anyone. So she's like, don't talk smack about my son. Because it's the thing of like, because it's not like, I think there's a combination of her being like, because I didn't talk about it last episode, but when Youngsik made his decision to be a circle saying like, let's stay, she's like, I know you will be fine without me, but if something happens to you here, she's like, I would not want to leave here. I might as well die here because I won't want to keep living on without you, And he was like, please don't say something like that, Mom. And this kind of made you think for a second, like, yo, is his mom about to die? But luckily, like I said, Gi-hoon and Inho like grabbed her up. So I'm like, okay, good. So luckily, everyone ended up surviving that round. I believe that's the one where the girl that's with Thanos, his buddy, because like the first guy, because it was like at one point it was like a group of 4 and there was 5 of them, kicked that guy out, and then later on Thanos was like, yo, what happened to my boy Gyeong or whatever? And I'm like, you literally kicked him out. It's like, dude, you were so fried. My other thought was like, eventually going to run out of pills, aren't you? I mean, maybe they're not popping them as frequently as I think they are, but it's like, I'd assume they're popping at least 1 a day or something like that before the next game, just to keep themselves in that like that haze. But I was also about to say, like, what are you going to do when you run out of pills? Because you had enough to like probably supply you throughout all the games, depending on how frequently you're popping it, but now you're sharing them with someone else, so the pills are going to run through faster. I guess that's kind of a moot point now by the end of the episode, but we'll get to that. So I don't know. But Minsu did not choose the girl's side, even though she had said the last episode, like, oh, like, I like you because I know you can be trusted. Those guys, people like them, like Thanos, it's like, those are people who are idiots like them, are easy to manipulate. That's why you join up with someone like them. But, she's like, the reason why she's like, I trust you, Minsu, is because I know I can. You will not be the betrayal type of person. And he ultimately betrayed her because they were doing a rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes with who. Kind of interesting to kind of bring that all back, considering, like, first episode involved rock, paper, scissors, and now they're bringing rock, paper, scissors back in like the penultimate episode of the season 2. I don't know. I mean, once again, we're talking kids games, and that's usually how things get settled as a rock paper scissors thing. Obviously, it wasn't rock paper scissors -1, so that would have complicated things even more. You don't have enough time to be doing all that. So, but yeah, Minsu survived with them, and they're just so proud of him. Like, oh, my boy Minsu, and it's like he feels bad because when he looks at her, she looks away from him because she's so disappointed in him. I mean, who knows? She could be playing the long game of like, I want to pretend like I'm on your side just so that I can betray you later on, like, or you're less likely to betray me. But it's also the thing of she probably looked at him as like, you're someone different, but it seems like he's kind of got like a pushover personality. He seems very meekish, and it's just like when someone with like a more overbearing personality kind of like meets up with him, he like kind of buckles under that pressure because he's scared, and these idiots are just, it's so easy for him to get swayed by them because rather it's just like he's just so in the moment swayed by them rather than kind of thinking like I should be thinking in the long run because he wants to be on their good side because he doesn't want them to turn against him because it's like, yeah, sticking with them has kind of been his best chance of survival so far. But anyway, I kind of went on my tangent. Young Suk sick when he sees his mom again, and he's like, I'm so sorry. He just couldn't even get the words out. She's like, it's okay, we both made it through, it's okay. So we keep going through the next round, and the next round, sadly, we saw the death of Young Mi because once again everyone was scrambling to get into these rooms, and it was Myungi ends up being in that same room with its Young Sik, his mom, Junhee, can't remember who else it was. I know it's they were trying to get Young Mi in there, but there wasn't enough time, and it's just Jung Hyungju, and sadly Yomi like literally gets killed right in front of their door. Her body slides down their door, and she obviously is pissed at Myungi, but Jaehee is, and the others. Oh, it's also Daho is there too, and it's like, yeah, nothing could have been done. There wasn't enough time. And later on, Myungi's like, oh, thank you for having my back. She's like, I only agreed with you because what you said was right. Don't get it twisted what our situation is. You kind of saved all of us, but it still doesn't change the fact what happened sucks. You know? That really, really, really sucks. Yeah, sadly, Yomi didn't make it. And you know, once again, Hyungju has even more guilt over it because she's one of the people that wanted to continue. And it's like, right, they had made this promise of once we get out of here, we all live near each other, we'll meet up. But I mean, Hyungju like kind of already knew ahead of time before the vote. That's why she was kind of quiet at that time because she knew which way she was going to lean and she knew how important this was to her. But now it's that thing of, I had friends. Because that's the thing, you can't tell someone what's more important to them and what's not when you've kind of lost everything. And yes, you've gotten freedom, but there's loneliness with that. And you found people you don't have to be as alone. You don't have to explain yourself. They've accepted you. But it's still the thing of like, I don't want to have to keep explaining myself to the world and just everything being what it was. Like, she wanted that fresh start in her life, so she needed this money. But it's also the thing of, I made that choice and now I've lost someone who looked up to me, you know, the person that calls you Uni looked at you like the big sis, and now it's like, damn, you know. And that regret is what also like it's eating Ju up a lot, you know. So the final round ended up being, hey, we need 2 people, and I think it speaks volumes that Inho's the one that's like, yo, you need to like, there's 50 rooms, there's 126 people. Of course, we're going to they're going to make it so that only 100 people survive this. So it's a mad dash to the very, very end. Everyone pushing people. Junbei ended up being with Inho. Inho pulled one guy out of the room, and so it's him and Junbei in one room, but there's another guy, and you're like, well, shit. And the guy's like, we were in here first. So what does Inho do? He kills the guy. Makes all the sense. It's effed up to say, but you're like, right, that was the only way you were going to make that happen. If instead of spending time trying to kick him out, sadly, the simplest thing was to kill him. It is effed up, but you're like, you know, because they do have cameras in that room. Because that one group that tried it was like, oh, we're supposed to have 4, but we have 3. They won't know. It's like, no, they have cameras in the room. And the moment they found out you only had 3, like, yeah, you didn't meet the requirement, stuck the gun in there and blasted all of you. So we had that situation. I forgot who Gi-hoon was with at that time, who his partner in that situation was. But yeah, I think Yuming was like the only death of people we've come to know. I believe she's the only like death of a character we kind of knew amongst like our main ensembles. So because I believe Junhee was with Myunggi at this time, if I remember correctly, and maybe 246, maybe he was with Hyungjo, if I remember, because I remember at one point in time he had grabbed her hand, so I believe they were together during that situation. I can't remember who Gi-hoon was with, but yeah, we walked away with 100 players. So this one game went from 255 to 100 even. So now the pay ended up going up to it was 365 million, I believe. So, and that's the thing. Most people are like, all right, so now we have to go and count the votes because it's like how many of the circles survived, how many of the X's survived, and it's like hopefully more people on the X's side survived than the circle side. Now it becomes this thing of, well, what do we do? Because obviously Junbei counted them. He was like, there's 56 circles, and he had to, like, it was 55, but then he had to be like, oh, remind it, like, oh, I have to count myself too. So 56. They needed it to be like, we need to bring over at least 5 more people I think it was like 6 people, because Junbei was like, no, I'm definitely going to vote to leave. So you don't even have to worry about that. So it was like 5 or 6 more people just to give them one vote over the tie. And so we had, for the most part, like I'd say like 95% of it was pretty much whatever people were initially. If you were a let's stay, you stayed that way, and if you were let's go, you stayed that way. There were only like literally a handful that would like switch sides, like a Hyungju and a Jungbae, as well as a Yoonsik changed their minds. And I even love his mom being like, if you do that crap again, I literally will hang myself here. I'm like, Jesus. But yeah, like, and like again, it's very, very close. It looked like, okay, things are kind of working out their favor, but it's like, no, we gotta, they're coming back, and I'm like, I hope this is going to go in their favor, but it's like, there's no way it is. And then you have like the real like X factor in all this, and that's Inho. And I'm like, well, for him, it'd be more entertaining to make it a 50-50. And I think that's his main reason for like, he's already, like, it would mean betraying everything he'd been trying to present as like, oh, I want to get out of here, I've got enough money. He would be betraying all of that act if he pressed to stay now. But it's like, no, he wanted to increase the drama, the more fun of it, by dragging it out a little bit. Like, I'm actually going to pick X, because even Daeho was like, oh man, for a second there, I didn't know what you were going to do. Like, yeah, it had my heart racing and stuff. Because the second to last vote was someone that was on the X side who joined the circle side, and we found out why. It's because crazy shaman lady, who we found out she put a curse on Youngsik, his mom, as well as Hyungsu. And I guess 246 technically counted because he was there too. Because when they needed 4 people, they kicked her out, and she's very petty. Once again, she's like crazy lady from last season. She's like the new version of that, but even crazier. And she's like, yo, I'll put a curse on all of you, and you're gonna have painful deaths. And it's like, I hope you're the one with a painful death wishing. I mean, they kind of got you through the second game, so it's kind of like, yeah, they might have kind of thrown you to the wolves with the third game, but it's also like, you're not the nicest person. If you were a better person, if you weren't kind of as crazy as you are, they might be more inclined. But it's like, yeah, I mean, they were a lot more like, hey, let's figure this out with other people, rather than they were with her. Because once they kicked her to the curb, but it's like, the moment you found out she survived, of course she was going to be a problem. Just like I said, her crazy lady predecessor was the exact same way. So they're that crazy lady archetype that you have to be wary of. And we saw how season 1's crazy lady situation played out with the biggest middle finger possible, going out in style like a G. So, we'll see what kind of craziness she'll pull, or whether like karma will come back to bite her in the ass. She's all like, oh, the gods, I'm praying to them, that they put a curse on you and stuff like that. And I love Young Six mom just hitting him, just being like spitting out, be like, all right, basically get all the bad juju off of you. But yeah, like I was kind of saying earlier, the vote ended in a 50-50. So it's like, where do we go from here? It's like, all right, we have to wait till tomorrow and there has to be a new vote. And I was like, ooh, that's the problem, because like giving enough time means like there's a whole night for shit to pop off and go wrong. So I was like, yeah, this seems like the time to kind of pop off and potentially cause some issues. But like the next day, they're trying to work out their strategies of what they're going to do. And I think it speaks volume that Inho was like, well, we should do what Gi-hoon was saying. Because initially Gi-hoon was like, well, we might have to force people's hands. But it's like, yeah, that would have backfired on you. Using force would have just probably convinced more people to go to the other side maybe, or just made those people on the other side double down. So it's like, there was no winning that situation. So it's like you just kind of have to have a little faith in people. But Inho was kind of like, no, I want to see how this legitimately plays out. I'm interested. I think he understands human psychology enough to know, like, I know how this is going to play out. But once again, he just wants to play the most interesting elements to the plot and see how it plays out. Once again, like his predecessor, the previous 001, Ilnam, how he was having fun, and I think he's finally, he's getting into the ring of things, like he's feeling it and vibing. So you also have poor Jungbei, which I'm like, ooh, you are putting a death flag on yourself, because he was trying to talk to Gi-hoon. He's like, yeah, I just don't know about him. It's like he was trying to bring up like, yo, while we were in that room, he like he strangled and snapped that dude's neck. It's like, and the look on his face, like it didn't seem like, well, obviously it's not the first time he's had to kill someone, but the point is, like, you could tell Junbei probably was like, yeah, like it's a situation where it's like that nothingness on his face kind of implies like, oh, dude might be a sociopath or psychopath. Because even taking someone like Gi-hoon is, even though he's never directly responsible for any deaths, he's indirectly responsible. Like, for example, like the tag game, for example, you're kind of indirectly responsible for that. But even Sungwoo, he never killed Sungwoo. Sungwoo killed himself. So it's like, even Salesman in episode 1, it's like, yeah, he did that to himself. Gi-hoon's done everything he can to save other people. He's never actively gone out of his way. Like, that's the most violent he's gotten, when he was suggesting, like, we'll force people's hands. But it's like, no, we can't do that. But he's like, yeah, I'm trying to do what I can to get the rest of us out of here. We need to all survive this. So, like, Gi-hoon's never actually directly killed anyone, but I think when it's all said and done, probably by the end of this season, he will probably have crossed that line. I didn't even think about that till now, but it's like, because I'm sure Junbei kind of realizes that too, and it's like, well, none of us have probably had any experience killing anyone, but now it's like he saw the way Inho handled that, and it's like, yeah, there's something off about, using, obviously, to them, he's young Gil, but it's like, there's something about the guy. But later on, when the vote played out the way he did, he's like, just never mind. He kind of quickly brushed it off. But I love Daeho try to bring up, like, oh yeah, the way Jung Bear was talking and stuffed his mouth. He's like, no, go eat your food. Yeah, thank you for voting our way. Inho is young Gil, but it's like, yeah. Because Gi-hoon, like, even though he hasn't quite picked it up, like, what Junbei was about to say, like, probably did strike a chord with him. He's like, something's got to be up. And so, sadly, it ends up turning into a split down the middle fight of, like, hey, the X is trying to tell the O's to join their side. The O's being like, no, like, how about you guys all die? Because once you die and we all get up to 800 mil, then we're going to quit. Because even Thanos and his boy are like, oh yeah, one more game means to one. It's like, no, this was supposed to be the last game, and yet here we are. Everyone just saying like, one more game. It's like, you're always going to make that excuse, one more game. And that, I keep missing bits, because this also ties in perfectly with an element I forgot to talk about, which is Myung-gi and Junhee, where he was trying to convince her, like, right, I'm on your side this time. I mean, he chose X last time too, but it's like, I'm going to, like, we can get out of here together. Like, I helped you because, like, together we can pull our money together, pay off the majority of our debts, and kind of build a new life with you and me and the baby. It's like, but then, like, Junhee's kind of seeing through that, where it's like, you don't want me or the baby, you just want the money. Because he's like, no, like, you know, because she's asking how much money will be enough to pay off your debts. And it's like, she's like, how about you take your money and pay off your debts? I will take my money to take care of me and my child, and bounces. But the problem is, like I figured as much, eventually Thanos and them would catch on, like, yo, who's that? And so it's like, cool, the last thing you want is for them, these bastards, to know that you have someone here that you care about, because they have all the beef and want all the smoke of you, and she's going to inadvertently get dragged in, even though she is a victim of you twofold. She got scammed out of her money just like everyone else, plus she thought you were dead and you kind of abandoned her and your baby. So, but that won't matter in the long run, just because of her connection to Myung-gi. Like, that would just kind of fall back on it. We'll see how that all shakes up and plays out ultimately. But yeah, like, the tussle is starting, and immediately my brain immediately thinks back to the nighttime slaughter situation that Gi-hoon tried to prepare for last episode, worried about people. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of it. And it's kind of what In-ho probably predicted and figured would happen eventually, especially considering he planted the seed by being like, yo, let's force them to join our side, and trying to convince them. Like, he wanted them to kind of nut. Like, that's the thing. Because he played it at the right time, because he tried to be like, Gi-hoon, that's not what we should do. And now he's going to be like, well, Gi-hoon was probably right. Considering it's a 50-50 split, we should do this now. But it's like, he waited for the perfect opportunity where everyone's already dug in on their side. And this will just, you know, it's a powder cake ready to explode. And then Gi-hoon doesn't figure it out to the last minute when he's looking at the food and he sees, like, they gave us forks. Because previously they had spoons, and it's like they gave us forks so we could get to some stabbing. So you're like, yeah, that's the problem. It's like, once again, it starts with a death. We just never had one yet, but that's what popped stuff off in the first game was, hey, a death, you know, and people know it, but no one's acted upon the whole, and people are like, oh, you should die, but no one's actively killed anyone. Technically speaking, there was some active sabotage and technically murdering people by making them not be able to get into the rooms, you know, kind of screwing them over. That's kind of direct, but also still indirect, but still pretty direct. Versus, like, once again, like the Deok-su situation of him stomping out the guy, killing him, and then that set off the chain of events of, yeah, let's kill people in their sleep. So this is in that same situation, because Thanos and his guy, like, are chastising Misu, but then, like, in the this is all happening in the bathroom, and Myung-gi, like, stops him, and it's like, yo, both sides gather up. It's like, yo, these circles are trying to convince an X to change sides. Like, whoa, you're cheating, you're interfering. Thanos and his boy are running their mouth about Junhee, and it's like, oh, like, if you press X again, Myung-gi, I'm going to cut off your finger and give it to your girl, and then probably try and make moves on her. So that whole situation pops off, and it turns into a tussle, and then Thanos is all about killing him, and the last shot of the episode is fork to the throat, and it's like, yeah, that's all it takes. Now shit has really popped off, and now it's just going to be like, it's probably going to be a free-for-all. This is going to be the catalyst moment that sets a lot of stuff in motion. How that all plays out, we'll have to wait to see, but I wasn't sure which way that was going to go, but I knew it was like, there had to be at least one death to pop this off, and I just wasn't sure whose death it was going to be. I kind of figured it might be Minsu, but we'll see. I mean, for it to be Myung-gi being the one who killed Thanos, like, ugh, that whole situation's going to get rough. And Gi-hoon's going to, you know, probably present it to some of his crew later, being like, they planned this. They gave us forks, hoping that, you know, they knew that things were heightened in here. People are on the edge. They knew that eventually we'll pop off and kill each other. That's what they were hoping for. Just, once again, like the first game as well. I mean, the game in 3 years ago. So, along with that, we have the whole body situation where Noel, like, decided she's not interfering and letting those guys get their bodies. And they're like, cool. Our operation's running smoothly. And one of them approached her being like, yo, like, I'm glad you decided to stay out of it. Keep that up. If you had just done that from the beginning, if you just done that sooner, you wouldn't have that scar on your face. But when she gets in her room, she smiles, because I'm like, what the fuck are you planning? So we'll see how that fares and what that ends up being. I'm so curious to see where that storyline goes. Then we also have the crew with Junho, like in them trying to find the island, flying a drone. Once again, I bring it up every episode. I don't trust that captain. Because the whole thing is like later on, they find a door that leads to underground on the mountain. Because I thought initially, not mountain, but the island, when he initially flew by it on the drone, I was like, oh, does he recognize this specifically as the place where his brother shot him off the cliff? But it's like, well, all the terrain looks exactly the same on all these islands, so you probably wouldn't be able to remember that specific enough to, it all looks the same, right? But it turns out the door was booby-trapped. One guy got injured, the other guy died. That once again, they're still on a time restraint. They're luckily in between games right now, but there's still the voting going on right now. Well, the next vote is going to happen now. So now it's, and the captain being like, oh, we should probably go back. But the head mercenary or guy being like, no, we need to stick around. Like, we're kind of on a time limit. Once again, the captain just does stuff that I'm just like, I don't know about. Because it's like, because it was Wook Siop being like, yo, how did they know? Like, obviously they know enough to have already set up booby traps. So, obviously it's like, Jung-ho is like, we need to only communicate on very specific radio channels and also no cell phone usage. Let the other team know, because I don't think I talked about that last episode, how they split into two teams. But I'm also like, I don't know, man. I wonder if that other squad's even alive anymore, if they're dead. I wonder, is Home Dude, the captain on the boat, just biding his time, that hoping, like, if they don't find out anything and they're still in the dark about his true allegiances, then it's honky-dory. But the moment they find out the truth, he's going to pop off and kill them, maybe. I might end up being totally wrong, but, like, I've been saying it since I think episode 1 that I don't trust that guy, the captain, so we'll see. But the next episode is this season finale. Once again, this season is like 2 episodes shorter than the first one, so it's like we're not all the way through, and that's what I kept bringing up. I'm like, what's the pacing of this going to be like? There's no way we're going to, like, I was like, not unless we tear through these next games, but we only just finished game 3 this episode. We're going into the next vote before we even do game 4, so all this stuff going on. Who's going to survive? Who's going to die? What the circumstances are going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out and what the end result ends up being. How this season ends and what this sets up for season 3. Like I said, like, I wonder, will it be a situation where the vote does come down to it and they just leave, and that is what it is, but it's still the thing of, we got to prepare to try and take this all down. Does the games get interrupted? Because there's no way we're going to squeeze in 3 more games in just one more episode. Not unless they're speed rounding it or something like that, which I highly doubt they would. But I'm just like, I'm so curious to see, like, how this actually plays out in the season finale and what it sets up for season 3. Because I had said previously, I feel like because the seasons were filmed back to back, it probably will film even more so like a part 1 or part 2. Like, it'll probably be like almost a seamless, like, continuation in a lot of ways. So that's what I'm really curious about, to see how that's structured and how that plays out. Once again, who makes it out of this season. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.